Włodzimierz Czarzasty i prezydent Aleksander Kwaśniewski.
Prezydent Aleksander Kwaśniewski.
A może puścimy konkluz? I tak zostawiamy kabel, czy go schowamy pod bluzkę? Pod bluzkę. Będzie bezpiecznie, cześć.
Po sobie chodzi.
Dobra, jeszcze raz.
Ona już nie podejdzie, bo ona już jest tam.
Dobra, jeszcze raz.
Ta bluzka. Jasne.
Jeszcze za. Start. Dzień dobry Państwu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome Wrocław, welcome Lower Silesia, welcome Poland, welcome Europe. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this great convention of the European and Polish left here in Wrocław. We will have a great privilege, a great honor to chair this extraordinary convention. With me, we have the beautiful activist from Łódź, deputy mayor of Łódź and deputy president of the New Left. And with me, Krzysztof Śmiszek, an MP and co-president of the New Left in Lower Silesia and deputy president of the New Left.
Szanowni Państwo, dzisiaj stolicą Europy
Today, Wrocław is the capital of Europe. Here, the most important debate is taking place, the most important discussion on our continent about the future of Europe, about security, about climate, and about obligations, our obligations towards future generations. We will also talk today about equal opportunities, about courage in taking decisions concerning society, as well as the place of Ukraine in Europe and the most disadvantaged. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our great honor to have with us in this room commissioners from the European Commission, MEPs, Deputy President, Vice President of the European Parliament, Polish MPs, experts, local activists, NGOs, trade unions, as well as, an important thing, students from lower Silesian schools. Do we have young people with us? Applause to you too. Ladies and gentlemen, today here in Wrocław we will talk about challenges facing Europe in those difficult times. Today, Wrocław is the center of the European debate. However, a few hundred kilometers away, near Warsaw, another party is holding its convention. A party that hates Europe, a party that uses the language of discrimination and exclusion and contempt, a party that would love to see Poland outside the EU. But we don't want such Europe. That is why we are here today in Wrocław, in order to say it very clearly. Poland is, was and will be part of the European Union. Ladies and gentlemen, this Congress today in Wrocław has been organized by the group of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament. So let us give the floor to Iracia Garcia Perez, who is the president of the group at the European Parliament. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today, but she has a message for us. Dear friends, this conference organized by the Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament takes place at a crucial moment for Europe and for Poland. You know how committed I am to democracy and to equal rights to equality. I wanted to be with you to share these ideas with you. And today, the 4th of June, we are celebrating freedom and democracy on the anniversary of the first free elections in 1989. If history has taught us anything, it's the fact that democracy cannot be taken for granted, that every generation has to defend it. Unfortunately, in Poland, democracy is under attack against judicial independence. The European Union cannot ignore that, each country has to obey certain rules, and Poland cannot be an exception. This concerns also women's rights. We, Socialists and Democrats, we know that we have to do that. We know that we can achieve that only when we show solidarity to each other, that we stand together. Especially now with the war in Ukraine, Poland has shown us a great example, welcoming all the refugees fleeing the war. But the EU has to do something for the burden to be shared by everybody. The EU as a whole should share this burden and help those countries, especially on the border with Ukraine. We have to do the same in order to, on the one hand, ensure that this transition that we are going through is just when it comes to renewable energy and sustainable economy. The Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament have been calling for Europe to take action, to make this transition just. In order today, with the war in Ukraine and the difficult situation, this challenge is even more urgent. If we don't do that, however, citizens will not support us. That is why it is important that we need the energy of the Commission, of the European Parliament, of the enterprises, of the employees, of citizens to maintain unity. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to thank the head of the Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament for those beautiful words about the defense of democracy, that most important issue. Today we have the honor to host here co-presidents of the New Left, which is part of the Socialists and Democrats group in the European Parliament. Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, now please stand for the national anthem of Poland and the anthem of the European Union.
Marsz, marsz do Moskwy.
Dziękujemy bardzo.
Thank you very much.
Szanowni Państwo, a teraz
Ladies and gentlemen, and now please let me invite the co-president of the New Left, the president of the delegation of the New Left in the European Parliament, and MEP Robert Biedroń.
Dzień dobry Wrocław, dzień dobry Polsko,
Good morning,
dzień dobry
Wrocław, good
Europo.
morning, Poland, good morning, Europe.
Wow, ile was tutaj dzisiaj
There's
jest.
so many of you today.
Gdybyśmy wiedzieli, to
If we
wynajęlibyśmy
knew,
stadion
we would
Arena
have
we Wrocławiu.
hired the arena
Następnym
stadium in
razem.
Wrocław next time, maybe.
Piękny ten Wrocław,
Wrocław is a
piękny
beautiful
europejski
place, a
Wrocław.
European
Jesteśmy w
city.
mieście,
We are in a
które ma
city
niezwykłą
which
historię.
has an
Historię
incredible history,
wielokulturową,
a history
historię,
of many
która
cultures,
tworzy
a
historię
history which
setek, a jeśli nie
is made
tysięcy
up of
takich miejscowości,
hundreds
nie tylko
of
w Polsce,
histories
ale w całej
like
Europie.
this,
Bo
not only in
Europa
Poland,
jest taka
but
jak Lewica,
also across
otwarta,
Europe, because
wielokulturowa,
Europe is
tolerancyjna,
multicultural,
europejska,
tolerant,
pełna
like the
wartości,
left,
które
full of
bliskie
values
są
which
naszemu
are close
sercu. Dzień
to
dobry
our
Wrocław,
hearts.
dzień
So
dobry
good morning once again,
Polsko,
Wrocław,
dzień
good
dobry
morning
Europo.
Poland, good morning Europe.
And you may say I'm a dreamer, but I see in this room that I'm not the only one. Pokażcie, jak wielu i wiele nas jest dzisiaj na tej
Show how
sali,
many
którzy
of
mają
you
podobne marzenia o
with
Polsce i
similar
Europie.
dreams about
Dajcie głos do
Poland are
Polski,
here. So
dajcie głos do Europy.
show yourselves for Poland and for Europe.
Bo jak nie my, to kto?
Because if not us, then who?
Dokładnie. Słuchajcie,
Precisely.
obowiązkiem lewicy,
It is a
obowiązkiem
duty of the
lewicy w
left,
Polsce i w
especially in
Europie,
Poland
jest
and in
bronić
Europe,
tych
is
wartości.
to defend these
Polska
values.
potrzebuje dzisiaj
Poland
nie
today
tylko
needs
pieniędzy
not only
europejskich,
European money,
ale Polska
European
jak tlenu
funds,
potrzebuje
but
dzisiaj
it needs, like
demokracji i
oxygen,
praworządności.
democracy, the rule of law.
Wyklucza drugiego.
One does
Jedno
not
drugie
exclude
idzie w
the
parze.
other.
I
They
takiej
go
Polski,
hand in hand.
takiej
And
Europy
such
zawsze
Poland,
jako
such
lewica
Europe
będziemy bronić.
is something we will always defend as the left. And from this place, at the beginning of this Congress, this convention, this declaration has to be uttered very, very clearly. Poland has supported the European integration for many years. We are the most pro-European society in Europe. We, as the left, were at the forefront of our march towards the EU. But here, at this moment, which is not easy for Poland, the Polish left and the European left have been supporting and will continue to support Poland for Poland to get as many funds as possible. That is why we voted for the National Reconstruction Plan in order for the funds to build housing, to renovate hospitals, for kindergarten and schools, for good remuneration. For employees to come to Poland. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened. The funds we deserve, unfortunately, haven't reached Poland yet. So, we would like to say very clearly the fact that these funds have not come to Poland yet is the fault of those who are responsible for that. The Law and Justice Party, the ruling party. This is the fault of this government because it's the only government in the history of Poland's presence in the EU that hasn't been able to get that money for Poland. To make it clear, if the funds get to Poland, hopefully soon, we will watch how they are spent in order not for a single euro to get to Obajtek, Morawiecki and their cronies. If not us, then who? Let me say this today. As long as in Europe and Poland there are people who don't respect democracy, European values, and as long as they are in power, we will not have democracy or European values in Poland. 18 years ago, we joined the European Union, and the left did that. Today, it's high time, and it's again the left's task to bring Europe to Poland, and we will do that as the left. So let me remind you that 18 years ago, on the 1st of May, Poland joined the EU. This would not have been possible without the will and determination of the then President of Poland, thanks to whom we can live today in a community of shared values, which most Poles support. Let me now welcome very, very warmly President, the most popular president in Poland, the best president, I have the courage to say that, the best president of the Federal Republic of Poland, Aleksander Kwaśniewski. Mr. President, welcome. Today, two Polands are meeting. Here we have an open Poland, tolerant Poland. In Warsaw, we have a Poland that unfortunately is closed, who instead of bridges likes to build walls. These are two visions of Poland. Good and bad Poland, open and closed Poland, democratic Poland and authoritarian Poland. Today we are facing an important historic choice, a European choice. Which Poland we will choose? We as the left are choosing an open, tolerant, democratic Poland. This is our vision of Poland, and this we have heard during hundreds of panels on the future of Europe. This is a Europe all Europeans, or most Europeans, want. That is why I would like to welcome most cordially a great friend of Poland, who from the very beginning, when our first aspirations to join the EU, supported us. We are very proud to have with us today Vice President of the European Commission, a man who is never afraid to bow before those who violate democracy and has the courage to confront them. So let us welcome the Vice President of the European Commission, Frans Timmermans. Frans, welcome among us. And today we will talk to our distinguished panelists and to young people who are here with us about a Europe of equal opportunity, a Europe that excludes no one, where everyone can have a good life and everyone can love whoever they want and everyone can be what they want, who they want to be. This is a Europe the left are dreaming. And for the first time, we have a commissioner for equality, Helena Dalli. Madam Commissioner, welcome. But we will also talk about Europe, so beautifully spoken about by Frans Timmermans, a green Europe where we breathe in clean air, we fight the climate disaster, because we know as the left, the Polish and the European left, that we have no planet B. It's the only planet that we have. And that is why, let me welcome very cordially the leader of the left at the European Parliament, Vice President of the European Parliament, Evelyn Regner. The left has its program, has its vision, and during those hundreds of conferences, panels on the future of Europe, across Europe, we have heard about problems of young people, senior citizens, millions of Europeans who feel excluded. That is why we are talking very clearly. When Europe is lacking housing, we as the European-led want to have a European program for building low-rent housing, because the right to housing is not a commodity, it's a right, and we will defend this right as the left. As the left, we also say when they are trying to build walls, when they are introducing fears and nationalisms, we as the European left say those young people should have a right to travel across Europe with one ticket or free transport wherever they want to go. In order to fight these fears and nationalisms, to destroy these walls, this is what we will be fighting for as the left. When they are building walls, we say one European passport. Who, if not us? We as Poles, especially those from the older generations, we remember those long queues at the borders. We want all people in Europe to use just one passport that will open the door for us to the whole world. This is our vision. When finally in Poland they are limiting women's rights, let me remind you, in 2022, Polish women have fewer rights than when they had when we were joining the EU, because in fact we have an almost complete ban on abortion. We as the left say this is their life, their bodies, their choice, and they have the right to make decisions, and we will fight for equal rights for all women across the European Union. At the end, let me mention something that Włodek Czarzasty, my friend and co-leader of the Polish left, will talk about. I would like to welcome our brothers and sisters who are with us. It's a very moving moment. Our brothers and sisters from Ukraine. Yesterday, 100 days passed from the beginning of the invasion of Russia, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. 100 days of sadness and suffering. But we have to remember that brave Ukrainians are fighting not only for their freedom, they are fighting for theirs and our freedom, the freedom of Poland and Europe, and they deserve our solidarity, especially on this important day, 4th of June. Even more solidarity with Ukraine, and this is another obligation for the European left. I began this speech from John Lennon's song, and let me finish this. Brothers and sisters from Ukraine.
I hope one day you will join us, and the world will be as one. Niech żyje Wrocław, niech żyje Polska.
Long live Wrocław, long live Poland, long live Europe. All the best. Thank you.
Dziękujemy, Robert.
Thank you very much, Robert. As you concluded, if not us, then who? Yes, you're right. Now I would like to invite the Deputy Marshal of the Polish Parliament, Włodzimierz Czarzasty, the Polish left. Welcome, everyone. Europe of equal opportunity are equal opportunities also for Ukraine. These are opportunities for Ukraine that should be a member of the European Union. Regarding Ukraine, all the Polish political class from the right to the left is speaking with the same voice. Supporting Ukraine in their fight for winning is the Polish and European right of state. The conviction that only the Ukrainians have the right to decide when and on what terms to come to peace is the Polish and European right of state. One of the driving forces of the integration of Europe has always been the historic reunion between Germany and France, and we believe that one of the future driving forces of the European Union should be the cooperation of Warsaw and Kiev. That Ukraine should become a lawful member of the European Union. There's no doubt about that in Poland. And from this place, I would like to say that I would like the fact that Ukraine should become a member of the European Union should be out of question. We, the European Social Democrats, we have to support implementing the sanctions and make sure that they are executed, and do not agree to force Ukraine to do compromises that they don't agree to. We don't agree to a second Munich. We don't agree that the monarchies say how the futures of other nations should look like. I do strongly believe that Ukraine will push back the aggressor. But before that happens, we have to provide for that. We have to provide armament that is going to help them push the aggressor back. I don't understand those states who don't want to join that. I don't accept that kind of posture. It cannot be that the further from Ukraine, the less important the case of Ukraine is, and the less visible it is by those states who do not border with Ukraine. Ukraine is a European state, and we have to make sure that its interests are well kept, as well as any other as of any other member states. Once again, I appeal, because I've been doing that for a long time now, once again I appeal to our friends from SPD, to Chancellor Olaf Scholz. I do understand that for the left, peace is a great value. How shouldn't I understand it as a Pole, where in Poland there were 7 million people died during the Second World War, but the great value is also the fact that the Ukrainians can decide about their country, they can defend their country, and they have to do it. They can push back the unprovoked aggression, and we have the obligation to support them in their fight. It's a great cause. It's a great cause that the Ukrainians give their land, give their fighters who fight for the land, very often dying, that the Ukrainians fight for their freedom, but also for our security. They defend us from the Russian invasion, and we in Poland shelter 1 million of Ukrainian children here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very rare thing to see, that one nation shelters 1 million of their children to another country. During the meetings, I speak with the Poles, women, and men. I tell them we should treat the Ukrainians as if when Russia invaded us, the Polish women and men were treated in the same way on the railway station in Berlin. I tell other people as well, you should Ukrainians as if you wanted to be treated if, in the worst case, Russia invaded Germany, as your citizens to be treated on the railway station in Paris. Once again, I here appeal to the European Social Democrats. We are the second political force in Europe. Regarding Ukraine, we have the obligation to be the first power. This is time for solidarity, and as Aleksander Kwaśniewski says, the president of our country, hyperactivity in this case. Social Democrats should be the first in this case in all Europe. I appreciate the approach of the Social Democratic Finland and Sweden, because they want to join NATO, because that is going to strengthen the security of the entire region. Once again, I appeal, using the opportunity that our magnificent guests are here, to all the member states, to the European Commission, to create a new mechanism to help countries who host refugees. In Poland, we are now helping more than 2 million refugees. They have access to the labor market, healthcare, schools, education, kindergartens. They have access to homes, houses, and to all those elements of a European state of well-being, just like in other countries of the member states. They have access to all the welfare, and that costs 12 billion euro per year. That is 500 euros per refugee, for a refugee, and that is to have access to healthcare, to school, to housing, to kindergarten, for public transportation. I appeal to you so that you start calculating simply 500 euros multiplied by 12 months, multiplied by 2 million people, that is 12 billion euros a year. It's not 200 million euros, it's not 800 million euros, it's not 1 billion euros, it's not 2 billion euros. This is 12 billion euros. We have seen how various countries approached the situation in other conflicts. Poland, in the previous conflicts, has not had clean hands. But we now have the experience, and we know, the Social Democrats, we know that in this case, our country was lost in the case. It was wrong. And we have to share that with the European Union. I here appeal to the European Commission and the leaders of the member states for that money. This is not the money for the Polish government. These are not the funds for us to become richer. These are funds to help people who defend us, who defend Europe. If somebody doesn't know what they look like, may they go to Ukraine, may they go to Przemyśl, may they go to a center where thousands of people sleep in one nave, in one building every day. May them see that. May they look at the faces of the mothers, of the children who stay there. Then they'll have no dilemmas that I'm now telling about. Thank you so much.
Bardzo dziękujemy Włodku za te piękne
Thank you very
słowa,
much,
mocne
Włodek, for
słowa. Bardzo
beautiful
potrzebne
words,
słowa
strong
naszych
words,
przyjaciół
very
z
necessary
Ukrainy,
about our
naszych
friends from
gościach, którzy
Europe,
dzisiaj
about
tutaj
our
są.
guests who
Są
are here
pełną
today,
pomocą, ale
and they're
potrzebujemy
fully
pełnej
taken care of. But we
solidarności
need
europejskiej, tak?
full European
Aby nigdy
solidarity
więcej
so
nie
that
powtórzyła się
never
ta
in the
tragedia.
future the strategy
A teraz
repeats.
gość wyjątkowy.
Now, a very special guest, a guest that should not be introduced even to the Poles, because everybody knows them. A great friend of the Polish and European left, but he's also a man who supports the memory of the Polish soldiers freeing the Netherlands, and for that he received an order from Lech Kaczyński, the president, parliament MP, and for 2 days he's also had a new role, a grandfather. He's always been defending the Polish and European state of right, vice president executive vice president of the Commission of the European Green Deal.
Dzień dobry, Wrocław.
Good morning, Wrocław.
I'm sorry, I still don't speak Polish. Excuse me. It is such a pleasure to be here, especially on a podium with our future. On a podium with the majority of the people on this podium with me were born after Poland became member of the European Union. Can you imagine that, what that means? The first thing I want to do this morning is a big shout out to the citizens of Wroclaw. You have received with open arms, with warm hearts, with every form of support, more than 200,000 refugees from Ukraine. You can be extremely proud of yourselves. You know, there's a saying by John F. Kennedy a long time ago, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Very often the relationship between Poland and the EU, for understandable reasons, because of all the investments that were needed and the changes that were needed, was defined by what can Europe do for us. In the last months, in the last 101 days, Poland has shown what Poland could do for Europe. And Poland can now be proud because you are an example to the rest of the world, an example of freedom, of equality, of solidarity. Our friends in Ukraine are fighting for the values that we have become to think are self-evident. Putin has put it in his mind that he can recreate a Russian empire. He has put it in his mind that autocracy has the future. He's put it in his mind that democracy is for the past. He's convinced himself that we are weak, that we are decadent, that the fact that we believe in equality between men and women, the fact that we believe in equal rights for sexual minorities, the fact that we believe in fighting racism and discrimination is not a sign of strength, but a sign of weakness. He is wrong on all accounts. And so the war in Ukraine is not just about Putin trying to enlarge his territory. The war in Ukraine is also about Putin and his friends in all of our member states trying to impose autocracy on us, trying to say to women, you have too many rights, trying to say to gays, you need to go back into the closet, trying to say to people, prosperity and liberty don't go together. Well, we will prove him wrong. We are strong, we are united, we will not be ignored. And if you belong to our movement of progressives, of social democrats, of the left, you know that there is no liberty without equality. You know that there is no equality without solidarity. And you know that those who propagate liberty but deny equality, those who deny equality also deny solidarity. And liberty without equality and solidarity is not liberty. That is domination. Poland has now a unique opportunity. The world, my friends, is watching you in awe and admiration. A world that sometimes thought that Poland is unfriendly to foreigners, that Poland does not like to show its international solidarity. The Polish people have proven that to be false in the last 100 days. And my appeal to you is, my strong appeal to you is, hold on to that. Hold on to that, not just for 100 or 1,000 days, not just as long as this war continues. Hold on to that until they are grandfathers and grandmothers like I am now. That is so important. You will lead Europe if you do that, and Europe will follow you. Now, I have a huge debt of gratitude towards Poland, and I want to repeat it again here this morning. My father, as a young boy, was very weak in the Second World War, living in Breda in the Netherlands with his parents. And he and his family were liberated by Polish soldiers under the command of General Maciek, who liberated Breda. That is another moment in history when Poles can say, we did not ask what Europe could do for us. We did what we could do for Europe. Many of these soldiers who liberated my dad and his family never got to see a free Poland. Never. Many of them weren't even able to return to Poland. Those who returned to Poland very often were punished, sent away to Siberia, punished very harshly. That's why it's so important that for this generation, Polish freedom, Polish sovereignty, Polish pride is self-evident. That is a gift given by their grandparents, unpacked by them, and protected by them for the further future and for when they have kids. I insist on this because although liberty, equality, and solidarity should be self-evident, they are not self-executing. And they will be under attack constantly in every nation, in every society, especially at times when people are insecure about their own futures. Putin has shown how easy it is to create scapegoats. If you lie to people long enough, if you muzzle free press long enough, if you create a political monoculture long enough, even the most outrageous and ludicrous lie will be believed, such as the outrageous and ludicrous lie that Ukraine is governed by neo-Nazis who are performing genocide on Russian speakers in Ukraine. There are actually people in Russia who believe this. I watch the Russian news regularly. I know it's a very bad addiction, but I do, just to be informed. And if you, without having been submerged in this propaganda for 20 years, would watch it now, you'd think it's science fiction. But people in Russia who have been molded over the decades to start believing this, believe this. In other words, if we want to protect our freedoms, this is not only something we will need to do for the next year or a couple of years until the conflict is over. It is going to take a or several generations before we can hope that freedom will also prevail in Russia. And in that time, we need to protect ourselves collectively. We need to show that we can make the transition into a green and just and solidarity-based economy and society. We need to do that now. That is the best answer we have to people like Putin who have a different vision of society. And I want to say this today because sometimes a contrast is made by our political opponents saying we insist on Polish sovereignty and Europe is a threat to Polish sovereignty. I would turn this around. Poland in its history has never been more sovereign than it is today. And this is also thanks to NATO and the EU. Nobody dares touch Poland today. And if we make sure that we continue to organize our European Union and our NATO on the basis of that well-understood solidarity, also in the future, nobody will dare to touch Poland, and your borders will be guaranteed and safe forever. This is my pledge to you. This is the pledge of the whole of Europe to Poland. And we will make this transition to a sustainable economy a success. We will only make this a success, and I go back to my phrase, liberty only functions with equality and with solidarity. The green transition will only work if we can prove as left that we will leave no one behind. Not one coal miner, not one person in the coal mining industry, not one person in the industry that needs to transform will be left behind. This is our solemn promise. I am a grandson of coal miners. I am a grandson of coal miners. My grandfathers were proud coal miners. But they also had one goal. None of us sons should be coal miners. Interesting, huh? You can be proud to be a coal miner, at the same time wish for your kids to have safer jobs, cleaner jobs, better jobs. And that is exactly what is happening in the coal mining industry in Poland today. And we need to say to that coal mining industry, we will provide those safer jobs. We will provide those healthier jobs. We will provide those better paid jobs. Building wind turbines, building solar panels, renovating homes, building electric cars, building electric buses, etc., etc. That's the future of industry in Poland. Let's make it happen. Long live Poland, long live Europe.
Thank you very much, Vice President, for these beautiful words. There is no freedom without equality. So let us start the first panel that will be devoted to energy security, to the security of our planet. We will also talk about a just transition. Our guest will be Frans Timmermans. Welcome once again. Vice President of the European Parliament, Evelyn Regner from Austria. Beata Moskal-Słaniewska, Mayor of the beautiful city of Świdnica in Lower Silesia. Adam Traczyk, Vice President of Global Lab, a political think tank. We will also have our young friends with us, and the moderator will be none other than Jacek Żakowski. Mr. Żakowski, the panelists are yours. Thank you very much. It is a great honor to moderate such a panel. And we will soon start our conversation about energy transition and about the environment. But I wouldn't be myself if I didn't take this opportunity and, like a grandfather to a grandfather, and not ask Franz Timmermans, why did you vote against the recovery program for Poland?
As you know, does it work?
Not really.
Try again. Yeah, here we are. As you know, the European Commission set 3 milestones that needed to be addressed before we could agree with the recovery plan. Now, these milestones will not solve all the problems we have with the Polish government on the issue of the rule of law, because there are many other issues where we still don't agree and we still need to do a tremendous amount of work. But on one of the milestones, President von der Leyen and I disagreed. She said the milestone that gives the opportunity for judges who were suspended to reapply through a procedure that could take up to 18 months to get a job back is in line with the ruling of the European Court of Justice on this point that had declared these suspensions illegal. This is President von der Leyen's position, and this is the position of the vast, vast majority of my colleagues in the college. So when we voted and they approved this is now the college position, which I also have to defend, obviously. But I can also explain why I don't agree with that. The reason is that I believe if a judge says, the highest judge in Europe says the suspensions are illegal, done by an institution that is illegal, then there should be no procedure. Judges then simply never lost their jobs. So they should be allowed to start working immediately and without any other procedure in that job again. This is my interpretation of the ruling, which differs from the interpretation of almost all of my colleagues. So this is, we have collegial decision-making. I was outvoted, and I have to respect that. But you asked why I voted as I did. This is the reason why.
I will not torture you, asking you to justify a position you disagree with, but let us move to our topic. We've decided with the panelists that everyone will have 4 minutes for the first statements, but we are behind the schedule. So I take this opportunity and shorten your time to 3 minutes, if you don't mind, of course. I don't hear any protests. So let us start with Evelyn Rengen, Vice President of the European Parliament.
Dobry dan, Wroclaw. Dobry dan, Polska. Such a pleasure to be with you here. We in the European Parliament, we are used to 1 minute to 2 minutes, and when we are allowed to speak 3 minutes, it's already luxury. So Robert knows that very well, so I try to do the best. First of all, we, as Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament, we will always focus on the rule of law and, of course, look very carefully what the Commission is doing and be aware of that we will do that also in the upcoming time when it's about European Union means that we look very, very carefully on what the Polish government is doing, what it's doing on women's rights, and, of course, right now what we do with climate policy and what we do with energy policy in these circumstances. Climate strike and women's strike, they are interlinked, they are friends. So those fighting for a better world, a better fight against the climate change, those are normally those being also in the streets on gender equality. I would like to have a focus on this. Who is producing the CO2 when you compare it? 1% globally produces 49% of the CO2. So somehow we have to look at the social aspects and we have to look also at the female aspects because it's mainly men rather than women taking the car, going to the office. It's mainly women doing the shopping and looking who is eating healthily. And therefore, we have to have a full gender mainstreamed as a way of dealing with climate and energy policy. And therefore, very shortly, from my Socialist European Parliament side, one thing, let us talk about money. Let us talk about taxonomy, because here the big money will be decided. And we as socialists, we fight that here we look very carefully that it's, for example, not weapons that are regarded as sustainable when you go into finance, that it's really sustainable energy, that we kick out gas, that we're really doing the utmost, because here is the future. And one more thought, prices are skyrocketing on food. We shouldn't decide on whether to have a warm flat or to finance food. And therefore, let us think about a coordinated policy on reducing the VAT exactly on this food that is sustainable, because this is really something that thinks of all of us. So, of the poor and of the women. Thanks.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you very much. This is undoubtedly the most political of political questions, the question about who is going to pay for it. Of course, we should start hiding this, and we will open the solutions. If we hide the fact who is going to pay, we will find it hard to find solutions. The second panelist, Beata Moskal-Słaniewska, mayor of the city of Świdnica. Today in this room, we've heard some beautiful quotations. I would like to quote my favorite song. I think you know it too, although it's a song of my youth, your youth, Freedom. I love freedom, I understand freedom. I cannot give away freedom. We will teach our foreign guests this song because it's very important and still very, very relevant. Freedom means the right of choice of a woman who has to face one of the most difficult decisions in her life, whether to terminate her pregnancy. She cannot do that in Poland, and this is a problem we have to deal with ourselves in Poland. When we go to elections, and when we can do that by going to elections and change the government, which has been devastating our country for a few years, devastating the judiciary, education, women's rights, and local government, which I represent today, by taking away funds from us. Funds, for example, for the freedom of choosing where to live in a safe place, a green place, where ecology is not just a slogan, but something that is happening. This is happening in Świdnica from the very first year of my mayorship. I decided from the beginning to support people who want to exchange coal-fired furnaces and switch to a different system of heating. This was difficult, and everybody was aware that gas was more expensive than coal to heat homes. But we persuaded over 4,000 people in Świdnica to change that, to persuade them that it's worth using energy-efficient, now electric buses in the city. We've persuaded them, convinced them that planting trees in the city was a fundamental issue. We've persuaded them that even if the situation is difficult, the prices are very high, this is a value. This is something we have to bear because we are fighting for something greater, health and life. The health of our children and grandchildren. I envy you, your grandfathership. I'm not a grandmother yet. I would love to become. But when we're taking such decisions, we are thinking about it. A family panel will be on some other occasion. Indeed, our children, our grandchildren, is something that makes us determined in our decisions, because we would like to leave them a better world. And if we don't start doing this now, soon we might not be able to change this world. soon you will have to pass a very difficult test. Young people will attack you, but wait. Adam Traczyk first, Vice President of Global Lab. He's still catching his breath, so he will speak last. Thank you very much. Let me look at the green transition from the social perspective. I think it's very interesting in Poland, and I think it creates a great opportunity for climate policy, because in Poland we have an agreement when it comes to climate change in Poland, basically. I've had the pleasure to take part in the Mullen-Kalman research studying such social emotions and attitudes to key challenges of our times, and climate is one of these. And our studies show that concern for climate, for natural environment, is a joint concern of all Poles, regardless of the political views. This creates a space for us for a wide consensus. This is one of the very few things of key importance in Polish politics which is not polarized. This creates an opportunity to create this great social energy for climate policy, sustainable and just climate policy. I think we cannot waste this opportunity. Climate needs a great positive story, a positive narrative that will enable all Poles adhering to various values to find their way in this new, more greener world. Mr. Timmermans has just said that no one should be left behind in green transition, but we can sell, so to speak, green transformation, green transition in a variety of ways. Concern for the environment means a patriotic duty. We can talk about the transition as something that will contribute to the increase of the competitiveness of the Polish economy and social justice. We can sell climate, so to speak, in a variety of ways, and all Poles will find something for themselves. So we need this positive narrative, because many Poles, despite being intuitively, positively attuned to the climate policy, are afraid of it. They don't know what their final consequences will be. And there is this question, who will pay it? Yes, there is this question, who will pay, who will bear the cost? That is why some people in Poland are still susceptible to this black legend surrounding climate policy. This electric bulb campaign was an excellent example. The government wanted to fill this empty vessel. We have this positive connotations, and there is this uncertainty, and the government, the authorities wanted to add to this uncertainty and polarize this issue. And we have to defend ourselves against this, because this is our shared challenge, not only a Polish challenge, European challenge, but a global challenge. And this is what we see in our studies, that we feel this shared responsibility. We will come back to it in questions. Mr. Timmermans now. A brief, spontaneous statement.
You know, this transition, the longer we wait, the more expensive it becomes and the more painful it becomes. If we wait too long, the IPCC report, the International Climate Panel report, says, to put it in the most plain English I can find, says, we're in deep shit.
Yeah.
But the climate panel also says we can still solve this if we act together, and we act now. Now, we can talk until tomorrow about the cost. I strongly believe that a country like Poland will benefit from this. It will be a net positive because of your industrial potential and the willingness of Polish citizens to make that change. Because, you know, this is what is clear in Polish society. People want to make this change. But if we don't make it, and I know in politics you shouldn't scare people, but this is because it's scientific and it's true. If we don't make that change, if we don't make it now, they and their children will be fighting wars over water and food. And I don't want that on my conscience.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you very much. And now let us listen to what they want to find out. Who want to say something among you. Not on this side, that side. Someone wants to take the floor. I see here someone. Okay. I have a question to President Regner. The question of climate change is also the threat to human rights. Often this is laughed at in our country, but the links between climate change and the worsening of the situation of a specific group, like women, is negated. Does the European Parliament see this link? Does the European Union notice that one of the first groups affected by climate change, like drought, are women, children, and the elderly? If so, what's the EU's idea to help these vulnerable groups? Madam President?
Thank you so much for this question, because that's it indeed. I mean, who is living in these areas where it's getting hotter and hotter and you can't afford maybe an air condition? I mean, of course, it's women, it's the younger, it's those who are not able to afford maybe the super fridge, whatever, in order to adapt. Yes, of course. And we in the European Parliament, we socialists really think deeply about that and are asking of full gender budgeting, of introducing gender equality as a principle in all those financial issues when we are doing legislation on climate change. So it's deeply in there. I wish the Council is doing more on that. And above all, just to say just a short word on that, we need really something like this golden rule of public investments for climate change, because otherwise it's exactly getting more and more expensive in the future. So really go for those investments that are lacking.
Zadowolony? Dobra.
Are you satisfied? Fine. Now we have someone here as well. I will hold the microphone for you. I have a question to Adam Traczyk. Adam, this discussion about climate, the need to protect the environment, moving away from coal and transitioning to renewable energy sources. This discussion is not just a technical discussion, but also, or above all, a discussion which is a political or economic discussion featuring the governments and the big corporations. And in these discussions, we have a clash of big interests, mainly financial interests. And now international talks about that, for example, climate summits, have failed to produce the expected results. So do you know any other mechanisms of international policy that would lead to a situation when we have these results and the obligations towards our planet be fulfilled finally? A wonderful question, like on an exam. Yes, I think that the format of all these meetings, of these organizations, these political meetings, is secondary. Who takes part in them is important. Who are these people? And I see many politicians here for whom climate policy is a key issue. That is why it is so important for governments after each election to be greener and greener and to raise this issue higher and higher on this ladder of priorities. So I can only express hope that societies will go for politicians to whom this topic is very close. But we need social pressure. You may have seen a week ago or so the Dominica's La Sota from the climate strike who exerted pressure on President Macron. And we need to to look at climate holistically. Climate cannot be a separate issue. We've seen the link between climate and human rights. Franz Timmermans talked about social security, welfare, and climate. I talked about business and competitiveness of economy. There are links to climate as well, to national and international security in the context of the Russian attack on Ukraine and the use of resources and fossil fuels like weapons is one of the key issues. But what we are left with too is two mechanisms: social pressure and the right choice during elections.
Dobra odpowiedź.
Good answer? Very good answer. Yeah, excellent mark. Best mark possible. Indeed, it's incredible that the red has become green. That's the success of the last decade, this great transition. Now you, sir. Your friend said it's your turn now. Who else? Who else wants to take the floor? You. Brilliant. I'll hold the mic and you talk. I have a question. Why isn't climate not uniting everyone? What are the reasons in your view? I would like to ask this question to our foreign guests. I think they are already further on this road. So the question is, how to unite when it comes to our political scene in order to speed up this energy transition, to avoid this great climate crisis? Madam Renger, 2 minutes.
There are those who are suffering more, and there are those who are suffering less. And there are those who are paying a higher price, and there are those who are paying a lower price. And when you just look, there are so many huge enterprises not paying at all any taxes and don't pay their contribution. Of course, then you see, okay, they say they don't care. And we have to push more or less those who should do their contribution to pay taxes, for example, the big enterprises, simply to help that we are really tackling the climate change. I don't want that a woman who doesn't earn a lot of money simply has to pay the price for living in a flat that is in this vicious circle, of course, being not well isolated and needs more energy and paying higher prices for this energy because of being not able to pay solar panels. So it's the deep task of us all in the European Union to fund, to invest, to take this money of public investments in order to isolate all those houses. And this is not the task of the woman who is earning less money. That's a joint, that's a public task. And therefore, of course, you see those who say, okay, I already have the solar panels, I don't care about. And those who say, hey, who is helping me? It's a deeply socialist question. It's our job, it's our task.
Bardzo dziękuję. Pytanie było do polityków.
A question to foreign politicians. I think Mr. Timmermans belongs. So 1 minute for you, Mr. President.
I think there is a false narrative that opposes being social to being green, and it's the trap set by the right for the left. So if we want the left to win this debate, we have to demonstrate that we will really leave no one behind in this transition. Because if we do, whatever happens with the climate, if it goes wrong, rich people will find a way to go and live in Switzerland or somewhere else where they will not be affected. Poorer people and ordinary people have nowhere to go, and they will suffer more. And as soon as people understand this, they will be on board. But people have to see that we leave no one behind. We have to prove it from day to day. People who cannot afford to insulate their homes, we have to help them. People who cannot afford to get clean mobility, we have to help them and support them. If we can prove that, as progressives and as left, they will also embrace our ideas about the climate. As long as we allow the conservatives and the right to pretend as though there is an opposition between being red and being green, we end up with black. but we need red and green.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you very much.
I ostatnie
And
słowo w
now,
tym panelu
the
będzie
last
należało do kobiety.
word in this panel to a woman, Beata Moska-Słoniewska. I think the first word should be with women, right, girls? Let me tell you this way. First of all, we need to have courage to take difficult decisions, to stand in front of a group of miners and say, look, this is bad for your health, this is killing your children. We need to stop mining coal. We have to set ourselves free from coal. But in order to do that, you have to be a politician of great class. You have to have a mission and not go to politics in order to hold on to power for power's sake. That is why it's a challenge for you. Next year we have parliamentary elections, and I hope that this new parliament will have a strong left and a left government. This is something I would like to wish for all of us. And one more thing. If we want to be effective when it comes to climate policy, we need to have assign bigger competences and bigger funds for local authorities, because we know which buildings to insulate, where to carry out revitalization, where we would need a new park, where we would need to replace the old furnaces, which heating plant should be modernized. We all know that. We have analysis, expert analysis. We have brilliant officials. What we need is funds, government funds and European funds. That is why it is so important for us to have this recovery plan, because the recovery plan is not just about getting the economy off the ground. It's not just a matter of the economy. It's also a matter of our resilience, and resilience stems from good conditions of living conditions. All this interlinked, and I hope that this meeting will contribute to the fact that the local authorities will get all those euros for these tasks, for planting new trees, for having new buses for insulation and removal of coal-fired furnaces.
To the leaders of the left sitting over there, if you're serious about giving more of a voice to the young people, lower the voting age to 16 and do it now.
No dobra. Tak czy inaczej. Chodzi o to, żeby wnuki...
Anyway, it's about our grandchildren to live a better life and not a worse life. That's a minimum program. Thank you very much. And now Małgorzata Moska-Wodniczka and Krzysztof Śmiszek.
Bardzo dziękujemy naszym panelistom.
Thank you very much to all the panelists, ladies, gentlemen, all the young people. We would like to thank Jacek Żakowski, the moderator. It's very important to speak today that there is no way back from the recovery plan for our planet. Let's all remember, and we all agree, that there is no planet B. It is in the interest of all of us that the future generations speak and act for energy transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for an amazing woman, a politician from Malta. She's MP, minister, and today the European Commissioner for Equality, university professor, sociologist. She defends with great passion of the women's rights, people with disabilities. She is today the voice of all of those who in the European Union have no equal rights. Before you, Helena Dalli, European Commissioner for Equality.
Thank you, and good morning. And I especially thank Robert for the invitation today. And no, Robert, you are not the only dreamer. It feels good to be among progressive friends, congregating to advance our common vision for the future of Europe. We have received a clear and strong mandate from citizens at the Conference on the Future of Europe. They want a Europe of equality and opportunity for all. Equal opportunities for all mean gender, racial and ethnic origin, religion or belief, disability, age, and LGBTIQ equality and diversity. Equal opportunities are a value that our progressive family has always had at heart of our policy making. We have done so from the start with France at the Commission and Irache at the Parliament to ensure the building of a union of equality, where we are all free from any form of discrimination and hate, and where citizens have equal rights affirmed no matter their personal characteristics. The EU has made progress, but there remains a lot to be done, and we must keep equality at the forefront of all our actions. In our gender equality strategy, we confirmed our determination to create a gender-equal Europe so that all women and men, girls and boys, in all their diversity, can thrive, lead, and be free, regardless of where they live in Europe or what challenges are ahead of us. The heightened impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on women and minorities has intensified our work to, firstly, ensure that the amplified inequalities do not widen further, and secondly, to support and accelerate the closing of pre-existing gaps. And there have been some key positive developments. Earlier this year, the Commission adopted a proposal for a directive on combating violence against women and domestic violence. This legal instrument offers a comprehensive solution for all women victims of gender-based violence and all domestic violence victims to prevention, protection, support for victims, and access to justice. It will also allow us to tackle the growing phenomenon of online violence and introduce common minimum standards to criminalize certain forms of violence against women and domestic violence. Human dignity and bodily autonomy are intrinsically linked to gender equality and combating gender-based violence. Yes, this right is being challenged globally and here in Europe also. As I have repeatedly said in front of the European Parliament, while sexual and reproductive health care is a member state's responsibility, the Commission fully recognizes the right of every European citizen to equal access to high-quality health care. Equal opportunities in the future for Europe means that regardless of where you live in Europe, your health care should be the same. The Commission stands ready to support the Member States' needs and actions on healthcare issues, and I remain committed to promoting, protecting, and fulfilling the right for women and girls to make free and well-informed choices so that they can thrive, lead, and be free. We cannot afford backtracking on women's rights, which we have achieved in Europe. This is also valid for women that look for refuge in Europe. Polish citizens, civil society organizations, and local authorities have been the first to welcome and support Ukrainians arriving to Europe. Women, children, and others exposed to sexual violence, rape, or trafficking must have adequate social and medical support. We must also ensure that women have access to adequate care and medical treatments. I am committed to including all equality considerations in the Commission's response to the war. For women to thrive, we need to put in place the right tools and policy measures. That is why, by August, Member States must have implemented the 2019 Work-Life Balance Directive, allowing both women and men to equally take time off their care duties. This autumn, we will also put forward a care strategy to revise the Barcelona targets on childcare. It will ensure member states provide affordable, accessible, and high-quality early childhood education and care, and allow women to make career choices to be combined with family life. This will help increase women's participation in the labor market and narrow the gender gaps in employment, pay and pensions, and empower women economically. There is also much to do to achieve LGBTIQ equality. Our LGBTIQ equality strategy contains concrete actions to mainstream LGBTIQ equality in all policy areas. We are now implementing these and developing guidelines for the national strategies and action plans to enhance LGBTIQ equality. And a word on the so-called LGBT ideology-free zones. I know that the Polish regions that adopted such resolutions have revoked them, but I remain concerned that many persist at the local level. Our message is clear. The EU stands for LGBTIQ freedom everywhere. Such policies are against the European Union's fundamental values and do much harm at the level of the community. And as President von der Leyen said, LGBTIQ-free zones are humanity-free zones and have no place in a union of equality. And so the Commission and I particularly am closely monitoring the situation and will continue to do so. A future of Europe can only be one where the union of equality means and practices equality in all of its senses: gender equality, anti-racism, Roma inclusion, and LGBTIQ equality. Europe must be a place where, regardless of where you live, everyone can be who they want to be, free from violence, where Europeans in all their diversity can be free to thrive and lead fulfilling lives, and where nobody is left behind. That is the Europe I want to see, and we must not rest until we get there. So we continue dreaming, Robert. I thank you.
Bardzo dziękujemy, pani komisarz. Wiem, że pani
Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner. We know that you're in a hurry.
But I've got one question that will be asked in Polish, so you probably need translation.
I do.
Yeah.
Not probably.
Pani komisarz,
Madam Commissioner, she would have to go away to a Pride March parade to Zielona Góra. Let's express great applause for that.
czy teraz mamy tłumaczenie?
Can you hear us now in English?
Yes, now.
Okay.
Before I couldn't because of the applause.
Right. Zasłużone oklaski, to prawda. Pani
That was a well-awarded applause. Madam Commissioner, one question. In Europe now we have more and more governments who use the hate language, who use the depreciation language and exclusion language. What instruments does European Union have with regard to the fact that these governments, they infringe the basic rights of the EU? How can we mobilize the society to push back what threatens equality, human rights, or tolerance? What tools do we have to push it back?
talk to me.
Did you hear the translation?
I'll ask in English. There are more and more governments, European Union, that use the language of hatred, use the language of exclusion of different groups. What European Union can do to stop this wave of hatred, wave of disregarding people just because of who they are? What European Union can do to mobilize societies to stand for the values which are equality, freedom, and human rights?
Yes, I think it is basic that nobody chooses how they are born. So how do we, as politicians, as policymakers, as legislators, discriminate against people because of the way that they were born? So I think it's a no-brainer. So if every person who is in a position of implementing policy, of writing legislating, keeps this in mind, I think that we will have a much better world. But of course, that's not how it is. As you say, there is a lot of hatred, there is a lot of discrimination in this world and in Europe. And to come closer to home, this was one of the reasons why President von der Leyen decided that there should be a portfolio dedicated entirely to equality, to have somebody who is focused entirely on seeing that what you see will not continue to happen in this Europe. And that is why, from the beginning of my mandate, we launched 5 equality strategies on anti-racism, on LGBTIQ equality, the first ever LGBTIQ equality strategy, on gender equality strategy, on an equality for persons with disabilities, and a strategy for Roma inclusion. So now that we have the structure, we have these strategies, we are working with all the member states to help them have their own strategies, reflecting the Commission strategy in all these areas of policy. It's not easy because strategies and legislation many times are not enough, because it is attitudes also and cultures that we have to change. So that is the hardest bit. We can do all the work on legislation, on strategy, on policy making, but we have to be on the ground, and that is why I'm going to the Pride March now. We have to be there in order to pass on the message that there is no room for discrimination, because nobody chooses how they are born, and we should, in our work, only help people to reach their full potential. And this is not only the moral argument, whereby every person should have a fair chance in life. There is also, for those who do not maybe understand the moral argument, there is also the economic argument, that we are wasting a lot of talent when we discriminate, when we hate, when we do all the things that you mentioned in your question. Imagine, for instance, all the investment which goes into the training and education of women. And then we have such a deficit of women in the labor market. So where is that investment going? We're losing that investment. Why? Because we don't have the structures for childcare, for instance, in order for parents to reach this work-life balance which we are speaking about. So women then vote with their feet and just leave the labor market. So it's also the economic argument. How much talent are we wasting when we discriminate against LGBTIQ people? You know, you get to know these people and you discover their talents, but they tell you, I was never encouraged to proceed, to reach my full potential because of how I was born. You know, so there is so much that we have to do, aside from legislation, strategies, and policies. Also, a lot of work we need to do on attitudes and on culture. And so it is us first who will have to change.
Thank you so much. Helena. Thank you so much, and good luck for the Pride. Thank you for all you do for Europe.
Thank you so much. Szanowni Państwo, przechodzimy od razu do naszego panelu.
Let's jump into the panel right away. We now have a great honor and privilege to lead this panel with amazing women, with amazing persons who have done so much for equality. Let's welcome the MP Agnieszka Dziemianowicz-Bąk, the new left. Let's welcome Beata Maciejewska, Deputy Chair of the New Left, Alina Szeptycka from Wrocław, Co-Chair of the Council for Equal Treatment of the City of Wrocław. Ladies and gentlemen, we are behind time, so I'll give the floor to the young people who have many questions. I know that this session brought room to lots of enthusiasm because the topic is a very hot topic. The first questions of the young people to our guests. Who goes first? Here, please. I have a question to Madam MP. Which one? Madam Agnieszka Dziemianowicz-Bąk. In 2004, when Poland joined the EU, women had more rights than now. And the last years brought limitations of the women's rights about deciding about their bodies. My question is how to make that the society stops the discrimination, how to make that the discrimination is not widespread. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Madam Dziemianowicz-Bąk. Thank you very much. This is a very important question because the diagnosis is very true, although very sad. But before I go to answering the question on how to make that the society is not accustomed to this situation, I would like this question to be heard, because it's very often repeated. What to do not to feel comfortable that step by step the women's rights are taken away. When I hear those questions, I think, well, do we really live in the world in a year where we have to ask what to do not to feel comfortable with the fact that half of the society is discriminated? What to do not to feel comfortable that there is acceptance for violence for half of the society? What to do not to feel comfortable that the society doesn't feel comfortable that half of the society earns less money for the same work, that they work in worse paid jobs? This question is absurd, and the fact that we have to ask the question and look for the answer to the question shows how bad the situation is. And apart from the fact that every woman in Poland knows that, and more Europeans know that, and the EU opinion as well, we have a complete ban on abortion right now. We also have different limitations. For some years now, the emergency contraception is for prescription. Is anybody feeling uncomfortable with that? That this kind of contraception is necessary? You can do that, but you have to go to a doctor and pay several hundred zlotys to get this prescription. Limitation of the women's rights, whether somebody wants to be a mother or not. There are many obstacles being put to women who want to be mothers, but they cannot because they're struggling getting pregnant. The fact that the Polish government backed out from financing in vitro procedures from the budget of the Polish budget. Polish rights are not only reproductive rights. I am an MP from Wrocław. I come from this place, and I have to remind you about our case from Wrocław. There has been a 2-week strike close to Kaufland against violating rights against discrimination of women who do not get pay rises, they don't get bonuses, they don't get the same pay. Why? Because they go on maternity leave, and when they come back, they cannot benefit from those benefits. It's not a Polish government, it's not a Polish company, it's an international company that benefits the fact that in Poland there's the climate and acceptance to violate women's rights. What to do to feel uncomfortable with that? First of all, point out that the problems related with women's discrimination is not related with the problem of women, it's the problem of the Polish society. We are an aging society in Poland. Poles do not want to have babies. They don't decide to have babies. Why? Because they are afraid to be pregnant. All the research shows that even those ladies who would like to get pregnant, would like to have children, they are afraid because if something happens, if there are some lethal problems in the baby, they might be in a very, very difficult situation. Is this a problem of the Polish society? Of course, yes, because if the Polish women do not want to have children, we will continue having an aging society. How to not feel comfortable with that, how to support the fight against discrimination of women. We have to show that this is the fight for the better rights for all of them. The Kaufland, I reminded, the employees' rights, I reminded. If we fight for better pays in the state jobs, they're mostly teachers, clerks in state jobs. They're not only women, but also men working in those fields. They'll benefit from that. So going for the ladies' right, women's right, will also support men's right as well. What's most important, we have to take things into our hands. Do not give away the fight for the women's right to somebody else. Do not agree that men fight for us, even those who are our allies. And we are happy that there's more and more of men supporting women. But decisions of women should be made by decisions. And this is how the hell of women started. That the guys from the clergy with the politicians, they decided about our fate and future. That's why, girls, summing up the shortest way possible, girls, go to politics, be active, be engaged. Let's fight for our rights. Let's fight strongly, loudly, until we get there. Thank you very much. Agnieszka has raised the bar very high. Who would like to ask another question? Thank you very much. I have a question to Madam Maciejewska. What for you in political and practical dimension are equal chances? Because when we speak about equal opportunities, we think about the vulnerable groups who are prone to discrimination. So how does the left define equal opportunities? And are there any areas where we see discrepancies, inequalities? Thank you very much for this question. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here with you. It's a very important topic because the answer is very sad. First of all, we have the law that discriminates us, especially in Poland, and I would like to underline that. Until now, we've had Helena Dali, who replied to violating law in Poland. I'll remind you that 1/3 of Poland are still those anti-LGBT zones. They are shameful. They were adopted by the Polish government, and they exclude the people, and they tell the people that they are worse than other people. And this is what's happening now in our country, in the heart of Europe, in the center of Europe. So when we speak whether we have equal opportunities, in Poland we can say that there are politicians who create law that excludes us from equal rights. And they do it now. They don't have to go and quote old legal provisions. Helena Dali tries to push it away as much as possible. The European Union said, we don't like you to have those zones free of LGBTQ+. Plus, some didn't. In my province, there was one region, one powiat, who dared to exclude people, but then they backed up from that. And I would like that we can push back those situations because it should never take place. The second thing I wanted to mention is that I feel very rested and I am tanned. Maybe you don't see that because I have full makeup on, but I recently came back from Portugal. I was there for a week because my two best friends were getting married. These ladies were getting married in Portugal because they couldn't get married in Poland. It was a beautiful ceremony where their families came over, people from all around the world, friends who are university professors in Japan, in France, in other countries. They got a certificate of being a wife and a wife. 2-3 hours later, they came to Poland, and again, they are strangers to one another. They are not a marriage in this country. So when we speak about equality, we have to speak about equality for everyone. A person who loves a person should be able to get married to that person, and that's it, full stop. And there's no, and there shouldn't be, never. And on the left, there's no hesitation, maybe not now, maybe sometime in the future, we're not prepared for that. What are you not prepared for? For human rights, we're not prepared for? The answer is unique. We are either for human rights or we are not for the human rights. We, as the left, we are for the human rights. I have not finished yet. That's just the beginning. I'll try to make it short. These are the matters of law. That's clear. Somebody violates the law, evidently. But there are also things that are less evident. When the law does not discriminate, but there's no equality. Because there's prejudice, because there are stereotypes, because somebody is in better position. And that is very important today, because there are young people today with us, and I'm so excited and thrilled, because on this side I see 3 people who are with me working in social affairs together. I'm so happy about that. And there's also in this room taking pictures Dawid Dobrogowski, who started the Polish campaign debate, young man, 21 years old, who works with us, but he had to leave his place because he was discriminated there in his family too, and he started a debate that housing is commodity and it should not. So some privileges that belong to some people means that we don't give chances to other groups. If young people in Poland now, they don't have the chances to have an apartment, that means that they don't have the free or equal opportunity. If the politicians say, listen, we cannot stop excavating coal now because there's a group of people who is going to vote on us, that is taking away chances. It's not taking away chances to live. It's taking away chances to settle a family and to live for the future generations. This is a horrendous situation that in this way you can risk the future generations, and this is what's the most important thing for the new left, to stand with the young people and stand for their interest. I'll be finishing soon. And I would like, and I wish all of us, that all the people who are fighting, who I do a conference together, and very soon I go to one of the mayors of a city to speak about the situation of housing, with whom we fight for the climate issues, so that they can be here in this panel, and it's us asking them questions so that they can say, yes, the left has done it. We all did it together. This is what I wish for all of us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know you wanted to ask a question. The floor is yours. I have a question to Alina. Madam Commissioner Dalli said about all the actions that the EU does to prevent discrimination and to ensure equal chances, but how can that be implemented on local level in a city like Wrocław, and whether top-down decisions of the city mayor can be boiled down and how to convince the local people, the inhabitants of Wrocław, that all those big decisions about equal treatment can change a concrete situation of one concrete individual. Great, that's a very difficult question, but I know that Alina can do it. Thank you very much for the invitation. I am very happy I can be here because I'm in a different role. I'm from between two worlds. Like, I'm an activist, but I also represent the Wrocław Council for Equal Treatment, and I'm the vice chair of that. And my role is an answer to your question, because the Wrocław Council for Equal Treatment is a group of people from different worlds, from NGOs and clerks and people from the local governments and all the councillors. So I'm in between the political decisions of Wrocław, and I'm also a citizen of Wrocław. Will decisions be enough, or how can we engage the local society? The political decisions, they're not enough. But we all know that if the political decisions are missing, if there's no systemic solutions, all the local activities are not enough, and they have a very scarce impact. So that's why it's very important to speak, to have the dialogue between the activists, decision makers, and the local society. I always try to motivate people to get into the dialogue, and I think we should shorten the distance between the citizens and the politicians, not because it's necessary, but because the politicians are also citizens, but so that we can feel that we are empowered. I'll move on to the tasks that the Council for Equal Treatment of the city of Wrocław has. We are working over a model of the equal treatment. The model will be maybe called a strategy. We will be using the European strategy as a document, but we are trying to diagnose the situation in Wrocław. What's the need of the Wrocław people? How can we respond to that? And as you realize, there are areas that are not controversial in our country. Because in the Council for Equal Treatment, we think about all the elements like disabilities, non-disabilities, sex, age, nationality, and unless there are no controversies for equal treatment for people with disabilities, we have systemic solutions for that. We are in the process, and the social approach is not as bad as it was in the past. I now work for people from LGBTQ group, but there are many topics that the politicians think it's not worth to tackle the problem or the issue. So this Council for Equal Treatment allows me personally so we try to be part of a platform where we will find solutions also for people from the group LGBTQ+. So now we need legal solutions. We need the decisions of the city mayor, the council, the city council, so that any person LGBTQ+ plus could use legal help, psychological help. There are many people who are homeless. The Culture of Equality, this is an organization that I lead, that they are funded from the city funds. I could multiply all those examples, but summing up, I would like to say that the key element is dialogue, cooperation, and as the previous speaker said, but I would like to reinforce that voice, I would like to encourage you to be committed, to be engaged, not only in councils, groups, gatherings that give opinions or co-decide about our solutions, do more so that we in Europe, we in Poland, we in Wrocław, we can all be equal. Thank you very much. Great applause for Alina Szeptycka.
Głos od naszej
And the last contribution from our unique guest, Anna Adbi from Albania. She won a competition of the Socialist and Democrats group for the most involved comment on equality. The floor is yours.
That we are all dreamers, but we have to rely on people that provide us to follow our dreams. So, as I was presented, I'm from Albania, and if it wasn't for the progressives, I wouldn't be here. So thank you, and a big applause for the progressives that give to everyone equal opportunities. Without the progressives, Europe wouldn't be where it is. So before I want to start with my opinions. It was here in Wroclaw 18 years ago that was signed the Wroclaw Declaration for European Cooperation. Paradoxically, today, less than 600 kilometers from Wroclaw, Russia, as a game changer, once again tried to put our European values into question. As quick as we were to respond to Russia's invasion, we have to provide for our citizens and the citizens across the EU borders a fast way that leads to energy independence, energy security, and at the same time, a better strategy for gender equality and intergenerational justice. These tough months for our continent proved that the vision of the progressives and the EU agenda, just transition, will keep the idea of Europe alive, will make our union rise stronger and sustain on firm pillars. The idea for Europe of equal opportunities is now being questioned more than ever, but is precisely now the best opportunity to open to a new chapter towards the Great Reset, which answers to the circumstances created and goes in harmony with our vision. This is the time to tell to the world that this was what progressives were talking about. We have to quantum leap towards EU energy independence, providing so energy security, fixing inequalities, and at the same time strengthening the economy of our union and achieving to go net zero. This urgent need of our union needs to provide a seat at the table for a new generation when decisions are made. Young European professionals need to have their say, and intergenerational justice is key, and at the same time improves EU directives and provides new ideas. If each directive is consulted with young professionals, which minds are buzzing with innovative ideas, the results for change we are looking for can be closer than we think. We need to focus more on developing new plant-based solutions, and a great example for this is plant-based energy, which varieties can be grown in many regions in Europe. For example, via cover cropping, the oil provides greenhouse gas reduction greater than 100% compared to fossil fuels. Poland can be a great example for that. They reduce the use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers, contributing to the objectives of EU chemical strategy and farm-to-fork strategy. The idea is to set the ground for a better connection between local farmers, young professionals, and EU stakeholders in order to introduce the local communities with innovation to open new perspectives on land use and at the same time empower altogether the EU economy and shift towards energy independence. Poland could be a great example to start this. Poland farmers can do that. In the focus of Repower EU plan should be also the EU fuels. They are a drop-in replacement for fossil-based fuels and can be immediately used in transport means. They support the EU objective of energy independence from Russian fossil fuels outlined in the ReEU Planner EU, which at the same time contribute to the Fit for 55 climate agenda and the Green Deal. Those in the panel know what I'm talking about, but I guess that many citizens do not know, so we should emphasize the message. These are only two proposals to contribute in less energy dependency, a cleaner environment, healthier and productive European lands, But if we engage well and we take the proposals that come from young professionals, young Polish professionals, and across Polish borders, many more ideas can come. Every European, in its core, supports the energy independence, the EU Green Deal, the Just Transition, and the Repower EU plan. But it's important how we share the information and these ideas to make them happen. It is time that we, as progressives, take action and bring our ideas into form. A Europe of equal opportunities is possible and is waiting for us to get things done.
Brawo. Anna, bardzo dziękuję.
Great applause. This has been a very great contribution by our guest from Albania. I would like to thank our panelists. I'm sure that with such girls, fighters, equality in Poland will be achieved sooner than we think. Thank you. Agnieszka Dziemianowicz-Bąk, Beata Maciejewska, Alina Szeptycka. May I have the last word? You mentioned the word activist. Let me invite you to the 14th Pride Parade, March of Equality in Wroclaw next Saturday.
Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, no important Congress of the left can do without one person. This person is greatly respected by the left, who is very proud of this person. But not only the left, but all Poles are proud of this individual. Ladies and gentlemen, the best president of Poland in the last 30 years, co-founder of the left in Poland, and now a great friend of it, Aleksander Kwaśniewski. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Długo siedzieliśmy, trzeba trochę postać, rozruszać
We've been
się.
sitting for a long time, so it's time to stand up and get moving. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your invitation. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to meet you and those wonderful guests we have seen. And let me share some reflections of an old dreamer. You represent a new, young generation of dreamers. I'm part of a group that did have dreams too, and many of them came true. The 4th of June is a strong impulse for reminiscences. On the 4th of June 1989, the first fully democratic elections to the Senate took place, and nearly democratic elections to the lower house of the parliament. Those people sitting on my left don't remember that because they were born way after that. But this was a significant year. When I think that it's 33 years ago, we can see how quickly time flies. That year, 1989, was a year to which we came with dreams. It started with the round table talks. It was a dream that Poland could be changed, needed to be changed, and could be changed. The elections was another dream, a dream of democracy, that Poland could follow the democratic path, strengthening the parliament, strengthening the citizens. And as we can see, we managed to do that. We've built democracy. Of course, it's not perfect, but what I want to tell you, and I want you to repeat it to the voters, because it's important for the credibility of the left. For those 33 years, the left has not failed democracy, and has contributed a lot to democracy. For example, the Constitution, which we adopted 25 years ago. On the part of the left, there has never been a threat to democracy. And there have been such threats in 2005, owing to the higher good of, I will not say which party, through an intrigue or a conspiracy supported by the government.
lewicowego
candidacy
polityka
of a
na
left-wing
prezydenta
politician
Rzeczpospolitej.
for presidency of Poland
Pozostaje
was
plamą na
basically
sumieniu.
destroyed.
To, co obserwujemy przez
What
ostatnie
we
7
have
lat, to
been
jest
seeing for the
ciągła
last 7 years
walka z
is a constant
konstytucją,
fight
przeciwko
against the
konstytucji,
Constitution,
omijanie konstytucji.
bypassing
To
the
jest
Constitution,
próba
an
dekomponowania
attempt to
tych jeszcze przecież nie do końca
decompose
dojrzałych instytucji
of still not yet
demokratycznych, które
mature
wspólnie,
democratic
ale także
institutions
i lewica
we
przez ostatnie lata tworzyły.
have been building
A więc
together, we meaning
demokracja była
also
naszym
the left.
marzeniem,
So democracy
była
was
naszym marzeniem,
our
które
dream.
spełnialiśmy, a które
We
dzisiaj, o tym
made
będę
this
mówił
dream
za
come
chwilę,
true, or
wymaga
tried to
także
make this dream come
waszej
true, but this
aktywności,
dream requires
obecności
your presence, your
i kolejnych
activity
marzeń.
as well, and other
Chcieliśmy, żeby
dreams.
Polska była
We
bezpieczna.
wanted Poland to be safe.
I w 1999
And in
roku
1999, also thanks to the left, which had a lot of homework to do, and I can mention that there were two movements within the left, whether Poland would be safer as a neutral country, a Finland-like country, or a member of NATO. I was one of those, as the leader of the party, argued that no, in this new world, without the Iron Curtain, neutrality didn't make sense anymore. We had to be on the right side. And Poland joined the North Atlantic Alliance. This was hugely important then, and from today's perspective, I can only ask, how would we feel, where would we be if Poland, including its left-wing president, had not joined NATO in 1999?
Marzyliśmy
We
o tym, żeby
dreamed
być we
about
wspólnej europejskiej
being
rodzinie,
within one
wrócić do
European
niej.
family, return to that
Przez długi
family.
czas, bo
For a long time, because the association agreement was signed in 1991, we joined the EU in 2004, so 13 years, the talks lasted 13 years, and involved also the left, and finished these negotiations successfully. We knew that being within the EU meant democracy, human rights,
obrona mniejszości,
defense of
to szanse na rozwój
minorities,
cywilizacyjny, na
opportunities
rozwój
for
gospodarczy.
development,
I też tego
also economic
dokonaliśmy.
development.
I
And
też
we've
możemy
done
przez
that.
chwilę
And
zamknąć oczy i
we
zastanowić
can
się, a
close
gdzie byśmy
our
byli, gdyby
eyes and
wtedy
think,
Polska
where
nie
would we
wsiadła
be
do tego
now if
europejskiego
Poland had
pociągu?
not joined
Gdzie
this
byśmy
European train? Where would we be now?
Patrzymy
We are
podziwiamy
looking and
ukraiński
admiring
heroizm.
Ukrainian
Jesteśmy
heroism.
tak samo jak
We
i
are
wszyscy uczciwi ludzie na
like
świecie,
all honest
przybici tymi
people
obrazami
across the world,
zniszczonych budynków, ofiar
depressed
wśród
by the
ludności cywilnej,
images of destroyed
dzieci,
buildings,
uchodźców, którzy
victims
nie wiedzą,
among
czy kiedykolwiek będą
civilians,
mieli gdzie i do
children,
kogo wrócić.
refugees, not knowing whether they will have a
też warto
place
wspomnieć
to
dzisiaj,
return to.
że
So it is
polska
worth
lewica była
saying,
niezwykle
noting
aktywna
that
od samego
the
początku
Polish left was
niepodległości Ukrainy
very active
91
from the very beginning of
Z naszej
Ukrainian
strony
independence in
Ukraina
1991.
otrzymywała już wtedy wsparcie
Already then
dla
we
swojej
supported Ukraine
niezależności,
in
dla
its
swojego
independence and
Myśmy byli
development.
adwokatami
We were
zbliżenia
the
Ukrainy
advocates
do
of
Unii
Ukraine
Europejskiej, do NATO.
coming closer to the
I
EU and
byłem,
NATO.
muszę nieskromnie o
And
tym
I have to
powiedzieć,
say,
tym, który został
I was
poproszony
the
przez
person who was asked by
prezydenta
the
Kuczmę w
then
roku
president of
2004,
Ukraine, President
kiedy
Kuchma, in
doszło do głębokiego
2004, when there was a huge
na Ukrainie, który
conflict in
został
Ukraine,
zapamiętany jako
which is
pomarańczowa
now
rewolucja,
remembered as the
żeby
Orange
pomóc
Revolution,
w
to help
rozstrzygnięciu tego
them
konfliktu, w
to
znalezieniu
resolve
drogi
this conflict, to
poprzez żmudne
find a way.
negocjacje,
And
poprzez
through
ukraińskie
arduous
okrągłe stół,
negotiations, a
któremu
Ukrainian
przewodniczyłem,
round table,
udało nam
which
się
I
takie
headed, we
rozwiązanie
managed
znaleźć.
to
Wtedy
find such a
Ukraińcy,
solutions.
ulica
And then
ukraińska, obywatele
the
ukraińscy,
Ukrainians,
młode
Ukrainian
pokolenie
citizens, young people
upomniało się
from
właśnie o
Ukraine
prawo do
stood up
uczciwego
for
wyboru,
the right
o prawo do
to
demokracji,
choose
o
to
prawo do życia w kraju,
democracy,
w
to
którym oni
live in a
decydują o
country
swoich
in
losach,
which
a nikt
they
poza nimi.
make
Już
decisions
wtedy
about their
myśmy
fate
wiedzieli,
and not
że
others.
Ukraina na takie
We
wsparcie,
knew
na
that
taką
already then
aktywną
that
rolę
Ukraine
Polski
deserved
zasługuje.
such a
Myślę,
support from
dobrze,
Poland.
że
And I
w
think
tragicznych,
that
dramatycznych warunkach
although the conditions are
wojny
very tragic,
wracamy do takiego
that we
myślenia
are coming back
o
to this way of
Ukrainie.
thinking
Ona
about
wymaga
Ukraine.
od nas
It
sprawy ukraińskie, rozumienie
requires
spraw
from us
ukraińskich,
the understanding of
pomoc dla
Ukraine, of
Ukrainy na różnych forach,
Ukrainian
wymaga od
matters.
nas
Help for Ukraine requires us, as Włodek Czarzasty mentioned, it requires not just activity, but extra activity. And I believe the left will do just that.
Pamiętam ten
I
dzień, kiedy
remember
Polska
that day
została ostatecznie
when
przyjęta
Poland
do Unii Europejskiej.
joined the
To był
European
1 maja
Union. That was the 1st of May 2004.
To było ogromne szczęście. Pamiętam flagi.
Was great happiness. I remember the flags on Polish cars in Warsaw. It was a great joy. I think May was warmer back then. I remember the day as much warmer.
To była ogromna radość.
It was a huge joy, and perhaps this joy put us to sleep a bit. We became convinced that perhaps Fukuyama was right. The end of history, that everything would be fine now, that we would have freedom, democracy, the EU, and the world would continue towards solving its problems skillfully and not creating new problems or conflicts. From today's perspective, we know that this optimism was unfounded, naive even. Very quickly, we were put to test as a civilization, as people, and brought down to first by the financial crisis of 2007-9, the crisis of Brexit, the migration crisis of 2015, the COVID pandemic, which we didn't know what to do with. We didn't know such a phenomenon that basically froze social relations, our life for a few months, for long months, and changed our lives so much. But I think that there were very, very few people back then who could imagine this disaster, Putin's aggression, attack on Ukraine. I had no illusions about Putin, about his ambitions as a superpower, to the sense deeply rooted in the Russian DNA of the superiority of force over arguments. But I did believe that there was a common sense in him, a pragmatic factor in him, that he would not make this greatest mistake ever, that is starting a war, attacking a neighboring country without any reason, another Slavic nation with which Russia has had thousands of years of coexistence. But it happened. We are now in 2022. We are here in Wrocław. We are at a meeting of the left at a difficult moment, in difficult times, demanding times. And they will be a test for us all, and for us active politicians, for you, active politicians of the young generation especially. And we have to define these main tasks, which also have to be linked to our dreams. Politics without dreams is sad and usually ineffective. Politics based only on dreams is ineffective either. We have to combine dreams and will and the strength of power of persuasion to persuade others to follow us. And this Congress today is a source of great hope for us, because I see those lines which can be dreams to come true, dreams for our times. First of all, a dream about peace, which has to be pursued very firmly in these exceptionally difficult circumstances. Support for Ukraine, political support for Ukraine, but also support provided by millions of Poles in the form of invitations to our homes, invitations to our Ukrainian friends, helping them find jobs, helping them financially. This is hugely important, and it has to be continued. I appeal to everyone in the European Parliament, the European institutions. Let me call on you to take this necessary step, which has to be taken. Ukraine has to become a candidate for membership in the European Union. No reasonable human being would talk about dates now. Negotiations during a war are difficult, if not impossible. But over the last few years, Ukraine has taken great efforts, is prepared to continue talks, to continue to reform their country and their economy. But today, this united voice of Europe saying, yes, we see you among us, in our family, among EU members, this is necessary to boost this, to keep up this great morale we see on the Ukrainian side, to show Ukrainians, yes, this is the path you should follow. Yes, this path has a great finale. It's not a path that leads nowhere. A journey that would last for a long time. I expect that it has to happen even this month. I hope that these internal problems will be overcome and that the social democrats in Europe will firmly argue for this solution, that there is a place for Ukraine in the European Union. If you lack arguments, if you run out of arguments, I have a very joking argument. It will not be very costly as an operation because there is one chair missing. The UK chair is missing, so you just add Ukraine. So it's not just UK, but Ukraine. So there is room. So costs maybe reduce as a result. So this dream of peace is very much linked to political, military, economic support for Ukraine and this humanitarian support for which we are admired across the world. I've been recently to many meetings and everyone, they thank Poland for that and really honestly they are uplifted by that when they think about 2 million refugees, that anyone with imagination knows what it means. The second dream is still linked to democracy. True, this war is not just Russia's war to take control, to regain control over Ukraine and rebuild great Russia. It's a much more serious conflict that would probably continue. This is a conflict between democracy and autocracy. Between the system we represent, the EU represents, with full respect for human rights, minority rights, women's rights, the rights to self-determination, international law, where law is the basis, the foundation, and autocracy based on lawlessness, on the violation of human rights, disrespect of women's rights, disrespect for human life, because thousands of young boys are sent by Putin to war. They don't understand why and what for. This is the final proof that autocrats, authoritarians do not care about human lives, and we have to oppose that. We have to oppose that on a European and international level, but also here in Poland. And I know that the left is getting up in the polls, and I'm happy about that. But you, as Democrats who have never failed Polish democracy, we have to keep telling the voters who still don't know they should vote the left, that you are a guarantee. The left is a guarantee that Poland will always side with democracy in this conflict. That we will always oppose Poland being pushed towards soft autocratic spaces. There is no agreement, no consent to that, because before we know it, soft authoritarianism will turn into hard authoritarianism, to dictatorship, and then we will have wars and disaster for people. This is a task for the left. Defend democracy. Democracy is not, should not be taken for granted, and this conflict between democracy and autocracy has to be heard in these upcoming elections. There should be no illusions. This is on a global scale, whether democracy wins and our values win, whether we are, or whether we will have to deal with soft or hard dictatorship or
marzenie
authoritarianism.
to
The
jest
third dream
równość szans.
is
Myślę, że
equal
to,
opportunity.
o czym tu dziś była mowa, jest
And what we have
dowodem
heard
na to,
today
że
shows
lewica
that
rozumie,
the left
jak to ma
understands
wyglądać, że to
how
nie są
this
tylko
should
słowa,
look. It's
ale to
not
jest
just
także cały
words,
pakiet
it's
decyzji,
a whole package of
kwestii, które
decisions,
muszą być rozstrzygnięte.
issues that have to be
Kiedy
resolved.
będziemy mogli rządzić, kiedy będziecie
When
mogli
we are in
wyrządzić,
power,
kiedy
when
będziecie
you
mieli
are in
wpływ
power
na
and have
decyzje,
influence on
parlamentu.
decisions of the
Polkom,
parliament.
Polakom należy
Polish
się
men and women
państwo
deserve
równych szans.
a country
Należy
of
się
equal
państwo,
opportunities,
w
a
którym
country
szanujemy siebie nawzajem,
where we
szanujemy
respect each other, where we
prawa, które mamy,
respect the rights we
pozwalamy
have,
dokończyć
we
tą ciągle niedokończoną
make it
emancypację
possible
kobiet w
to
Polsce,
complete
które
this still
uzyskują
unfinished
wszystkie należne im prawa.
emancipation of women who get all the rights they should get.
Równość szans musi oznaczać
Equal
także równość
opportunity
dostępu do edukacji
should
na
also
wysokim
mean
poziomie, bo
equal
to jest
access to
kwestia przyszłości
education,
młodego
high quality
pokolenia.
education, because that determines the
I ta
future of the young
równość
generation.
musi
And
oznaczać
this
również
equality must
właśnie
also
mieszkanie
mean
jako prawo, a nie towar.
housing,
Ponieważ
not as
tym
commodity,
otwieramy
but
szansę
as
dla
a
młodych
right,
ludzi. To
because
jest
this is
nasz
a
obowiązek,
chance for young
aby
people. This is our
przygotować
duty
takie
to
programy,
prepare
które
programs that
pozwolą to
will
zrobić.
make it
To są marzenia
possible.
do spełnienia.
These are dreams
I chcę
to
zakończyć
be
tym
made
marzeniem
come true.
być
And
może
let me finish
najważniejszym,
perhaps with the most
dotyczącym
important dream, because it
nas i kolejnych
concerns
pokoleń
us and the future generations, our
prawnuk.
grandchildren,
jest
great-grandchildren,
gotowość do
our
walki z
readiness
zmianami
to
klimatycznymi.
fight climate
To jest
change,
gotowość do tego, aby
readiness to
poświęcić nieco tej wygody,
sacrifice
komfortu,
perhaps this
którym
comfort
dysponujemy
that
na
we
rzecz tej
have
wartości ważniejszej, a więc
in
opanowania
favor of this
negatywnych
greater
skutków,
value,
zmian
controlling
klimatycznych.
negative
To są
consequences of
zmiany
climate
w
change.
strukturze
This
przemysłu
means
polskiego,
changes
to
in
także
the
zmiany
Polish
w naszych
industry, but
zachowaniach
also changes
konsumentów.
in
To
our
jest postawienie
consumer
na
behaviors.
odnawialne źródła
So
energii.
focusing
To
on
jest
renewable
edukacja w
energy
stronę
sources,
myślenia
education
ekologicznego.
focused on
Cieszę się
ecological
bardzo, że właśnie
thinking.
Lewica
So
ma
I'm
to w
very
swoim
happy that
programie,
the
że
left
macie ludzi,
has
którzy
it
umieją
in its program, that you
mądrze i
have people
przekonująco
who
o tym
can
mówić.
persuasively talk
A więc
about this. So
marzymy
we are
o
dreaming
bezpiecznej,
about a
pokojowej
safe,
ziemi,
peaceful
ludzi
earth
równych
of
szans,
people
ludzi,
of
którzy wzajemnie
equal
się szanują
opportunities, respecting each other,
i cieszą się z tej
who
natury, przepięknej natury
enjoy
tego
beautiful
globu, która nie
nature
będzie
of this
niszczona, a
globe
będzie
that
odnawiana,
will not
będzie
be destroyed but
odbudowana
will be
na
renewed
pożytek, na szczęście
for the benefit, for
naszego i
happiness
wszystkich
of
kolejnych
our
pokoleń.
and all
To
the
są
future
marzenia
generations.
i
These are
wyzwania, które
dreams
wierzę,
and
że
challenges
lewica
which I
polska,
believe that
lewica
the Polish
europejska
left, the
i wy,
European
młodzi
left,
ludzie,
and you,
możecie nie
young
tylko
people,
spełnić,
can
ale
make
przekazać
come
je
true
jak w
and
sztafecie kolejnym.
pass it on
Dziękuję bardzo
to
i
the
wszystkiego
future
dobrego.
generations. Thank you very much and all the best.
Słuchajcie, dziękuję za te klaski,
Thank
ale
you
jak
very much
będziecie
for
dłużej
this
klaskać, to ja
applause,
jeszcze
but
wrócę do
if you
polityki,
keep
bo to może mi się
keeping up
spodobać.
this applause,
Może mi
I
się
may
spodobać.
return to politics. Perhaps
Żartowałem.
I was joking.
Dziękujemy, panie
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There's no way out but to make these dreams come true. Please stay with us, Mr. President, because soon we will invite on stage our friends from Ukraine who would like to, in your presence, given that you are a great friend of Ukraine, to deliver an appeal to us and to all Poles, to all Europeans, and we will support them in that. So, our friends from Ukraine, please come on stage.
Dzień dobry. Dzień dobry. Dzień dobry wszystkim. Nazywam się Artem Zuzul, jestem prezesem zarządu Fundacji
Hello,
Ukraina, wrocławskiej
everyone.
fundacji, która jednoczy Ukraińców, Polaków w działaniu we Wrocławiu
I would like
od
to
8 lat
thank
na rzecz
all the Poles. I've been
integracji
living in
dialogu społecznego w tym mieście między
Poland,
Polakami,
Wrocław, for 8 years, and I would like to thank everyone for all that you've done. I'm speaking on behalf of all the immigrants who came here before, not only as a result of this conflict, but also I'm speaking for the people who came here in the last 100 days. Please let me start with something very sad that started when the invasion of Russia started on my country. And since the beginning of this war, together we've been fighting together. The Ukrainians have been fighting. Every single person who shelters refugees, they're fighting Poland, the European Union. I would like to thank for a very definite statement of the EU that is reflected in the sanctions appeals in the opposition to that aggression. I would like to thank Poland, who now is the best partner that Ukraine is having now. And we see that this friendship is tested in the worst possible times, and I would like to thank you all for that. It's been 100 days of fighting, 100 days of Ukraine fighting for its territory, for its cities, towns, people, women, children, but it's not only Ukraine fighting for that. Ukraine is fighting for the values that are here, treated as normal values, standard values, democracy, European values. Ukraine is fighting for the right. I see a lot of debate about the human rights, women's rights, rights of minorities. Ukraine is fighting for the right to be part of that debate, to be not to be part of a gulag, not to be part of the authoritarian world, not to be part of the empire that in 10 years might want to invade with its tanks some other lands of the EU. Now Ukraine is fighting for the right to be on the European side of the civilization. Thank you. And as I said, in the situation where Ukraine is fighting for the European values, the fight for values doesn't have the best before date, the expiry date. So I would like to say it clearly and loudly that thanks to the European sanctions, we have the chance to win. Thanks to the common effort of the citizens of the European Union, we can live by, we can win. But now we still have to fight and work towards Ukraine winning the fight, because Ukraine wants to become a good partner for the member states, and I plead the EU to give us a signal, show us that you're ready to welcome us as a partner, to give us a hand, not only in the war, but also in the reforms, in becoming a good partner for the EU. Now we see that Ukraine is fighting to become that partner. So please trust us in our fight. We do trust you. Thank you so much. Apart from those 100 days that we have been fighting, 100 days of stress, grief, fear of all of us, I saw that it's also been 100 days of good thoughts, good emotions, and I feel that from two perspectives. So I feel privileged that I can experience those emotions from those sides. Being an Ukrainian, I feel greatness, enormous greatness and enormous positive, I don't know, like sincere gratefulness for the Poles, for all that you have done for Ukraine and for the Ukrainian women and Ukrainian children who came here. That is amazing, and I know that Ukraine will remember that for a very, very long time. I've been living in Wrocław for 9 years. That's my second perspective. I feel proud for the Wrocław people, for the attitude of Wrocław, who hand in hand, together with the local government, NGOs, businesses, politicians of different directions, and people of different opinions and ideas and religions, they all united and they help their brothers and sisters from Ukraine. For me, there's a reason for me to be proud that I am a citizen and a resident of this city. I am proud that together with my colleagues, as part of our organization together with Ukraine, from partnership organizations who are here with me on stage, that we can work towards having a better future for Poland, for Ukraine, for Europe, and for all of us and our children. Thank you very much. The co-chairs of the New Left, Włodzimierz Czarzasty, we would like to invite Robert Biedroń, Deputy Chair of the European Parliament, Ewelina Ragner, all the panelists, moderators, please join us all on stage, because now this is a moment where we can express our solidarity with Ukraine. We can express our gratefulness, gratitude for Poles for what they do for Ukraine. This is a country who has been oppressed not because of their will. I would like to invite all of you to take a joint picture, but that's not the end. We'll take the picture now, and once again, a great applause for our friends from Ukraine. Thank you very much. And the last element of our convention today, on the stage there is a Wrocław Declaration, a very important document. This is a document that reflects everything we've said today about energy, climate changes, equality of opportunity, solidarity of Poland with EU, and the solidarity of the EU with Ukraine. I would like to invite all of you to sign the Wrocław Declaration on a Europe of equal opportunity. There are many pens, you can use them. The Wrocław Declaration. 33 years ago, on the 4th of June in 1989, there were the first free elections in Poland after war. In Poland, that was a day of freedom, the day of solidarity and change for the better. That's a day of victory. Today, 33 years later, in free Poland, in the context of the war in Ukraine, we want that day to be a symbol of a winning of peace and solidarity over violence and divisions. Today, on the 4th of June, we proclaim the Wrocław Declaration on a Europe of equal right. We want to live in peace that can guarantee our sovereignty of the EU and our security, ecological security, because we don't have time and planet B. That's why, as the EU, we have, in a solidarity way, we have to go to the green renewable energy. We have to stop excavating coal. Until 2035, we have to ensure free land transportation for people until 25 years of age in all Europe. Promoting clean transportation will be a benefit for all of us in the future. Secondly, EU is solidarity from the country of legendary solidarity with capital S and of a daily actions. We declare that we want to live in the EU where everybody has the same equal right. It cannot be that men and women of one country have less rights than some other country. That's why we have to introduce the Charter of Women's Rights, who will implement the healthcare after birth and before abortion until 12 weeks, and the right for abortion. More than 30 years ago, Poland became a fully independent country. Today, the Russian ruling takes away the freedom of Ukrainians and assassinates innocent people. We have to show how the EU is in solidarity with Ukraine. That's why we support urging Ukraine to becoming a member of the European Union. That's our goal, mission, and we are ready to implement that vision. That's our Wroclaw Declaration that has been signed now. As all of you signed, we would like to invite the young people to sign this Wroclaw Declaration as well. Let's have a joint picture again. Let's all have a picture. We would like to invite all of those who would like to have a picture with us. Please come and join us on stage. We will be ending very soon. That's the moment when, if you want, you can join the panelists on stage to have a joint picture taken. Everybody who would like to have a picture with us, please join us on stage, not in front of the stage. Please go back. Please go back.
Pomachajmy. Brawo!
Brawo, dziękujemy!
Bravo, thank you very much. That was a beautiful convention, that was a beautiful meeting, pro-European. We have shown our place in the EU of the Polish left, of the Polish values of the Polish and European left. Technical announcement at 14 sharp, all the women of the left meet here in this room. Please feel invited. And the second announcement, please